Hi, this is Wayne Chapin, and this is how to get up to $15,000 from Microsoft to host your servers in an Azure data center. Here we go. So there's me, a little bit about my background. The main one here that probably matters the most is the MCSA Cloud Platform. If you're looking for a Microsoft partner or an engineer that has a verifiable background in Microsoft Azure, look for the MCSA Cloud Platform. So this video is about getting money from Microsoft. First of all, you need a Microsoft partner with a cloud platform competency and a deep relationship with Microsoft. So the cloud platform competency is not just given to you. It doesn't just come with being a Microsoft partner. There are a lot of competencies, or you can think of them as certifications, the partners have in the Microsoft partner universe. But the one for Azure that you're looking for is cloud platform. So that verifies they have a certain number of trained and certified technical people on staff. It also verifies that they have a certain number of referenceable and verified Azure projects. And also Microsoft tracks how much Azure consumption that you as a partner are doing with your customers. So you have to get up to a certain level of Azure sales in order to actually achieve the competency. So cloud platform is what you're looking for. You want somebody with a deep technical bench and real-world Azure experience. Azure, when you get into it for the first time, can be a bit overwhelming. We've gone years and years now in our Azure practice, refining, learning what we're doing, bumping our heads sometimes. But now we've got it down pretty good. We have the same kind of project we punch out again and again, and we know how to price it so the client's getting a really good value out of this system. And then you want to request a free assessment of your servers to confirm migrating to Azure makes sense, and so you can also get a proposal, a plan, and a price showing what your one-time and monthly ongoing Azure subscription charges are going to be. So this is what we determine when we do a free assessment. So again, we review the system, we make sure that you're a candidate for Microsoft Azure, and then we put together a proposal plan showing the one-time and monthly cost, and then as I'm going to show you in a few slides here, what your anticipated funding from Microsoft will be to offset your migration cost into Microsoft Azure. And I'm going to get into that shortly. But here's what we look for. We look for what apps, files, and databases need to be migrated. We look for how many new servers need to be built in the new Azure virtual network. So you have a local network, and then what we're going to be doing is building out an Azure virtual network and then connecting the two together. So when we look at your system, again, the apps, the files, the databases, then we're going to determine how many new servers we need to build in the Azure virtual network. We're going to be looking at the total data storage we're going to need so we can determine the disk storage, backups, and disaster recovery and what that pricing is going to amount to. We're going to be doing server sizing to determine how much power we want to give to your servers so that you are getting the biggest bang for your buck and you're not wasting money. So keep in mind, when IT engineers put on-premises systems in place, they usually massively overpower the system. They have to be very conservative because it's a very big expenditure for all this equipment that they need to purchase on site. In Azure, we can just purchase what we need right now. So we actually have to do some backwards math that we've learned over time doing our Azure consulting practice so that we get your CPUs running at an average of 60% utilization. So they'll run at an average of 60%, then they'll have room to burst, but we're going to make those things really work for the money that you're putting into the system so you can get really good value out of your Azure subscription. We're going to determine, number 5 here, if your servers need steady levels of processing power, so they have the same processing power all the time because that particular workload or that app requires it, or we can burst the CPU power, the processing power. So if we can burst where you have something running in your server that needs to spike with a lot of processing for a short period, then go down, not do much for a while, then spike for a little while and then go down, that's a much more inexpensive server to set up. And we can save the customer a lot of money if we find that a server needs to run a bursting amount of processing power as opposed to a continuous amount of processing power. We also want to determine if we can run the servers 24/7 or just during business hours to save money. It is a 2/3 cost difference. We can save roughly 66% of the money if the client needs certain servers just running during business hours as opposed to running them 24/7, because in Azure we can shut the servers down if we don't need them. We will also be determined if we need to use virtual desktops or remote desktop services or RDS. will be determined how many users are going to be running on the local network, and if they are making direct connections to the servers through a VPN, or if they are using remote desktop services or a virtual desktop connection. We're certainly going to be confirming your internet connection. So we're going to be looking at what type of media. Is it going to be fiber or coax? What is your download and upload bandwidth? And what is the latency or the speed from a bit traveling from your computer, hitting the nearest Azure data center, and then coming back again? What is the time of that round trip in milliseconds? So we're looking to get below 70 milliseconds. We've seen times range anywhere on average from 10 milliseconds up to 40, 50 milliseconds, which is great. You can run databases that way. You can connect into file servers that way. So again, we're looking to be under 70 milliseconds. And then we're going to see what the backup internet connection looks like, or if we need to get one. So we definitely want to have a firewall on your local area network that has your primary internet connection, preferably a fiber internet connection, and then a backup, cheaper internet connection and a firewall that knows how to fail over and fail back between the two internet connections. So when we build out an Azure virtual network, this is what we look to do, and this is how we build it out in our Azure practice. All the servers need to be running the latest Windows Server operating system. So when I'm making this video right now in October 2018, that is Windows Server 2016. That is what we will be building. If you have applications or workloads that need to stay on an older version of Windows, you might not be the best candidate for Microsoft Azure, because we want to put you in the latest state-of-the-art system. That's going to give you the most stability, the most security, so we're going to put you on the latest version of Windows. All the servers we build will be running solid-state drives. That gives us a 99.5% Azure SLA. All of your virtual hard drive files will have 2 additional synchronous copies being replicated to other storage racks inside the Azure data center. All the virtual servers run in massive high-availability rack clusters with hundreds and hundreds of blades. Should one blade fail, Azure can spin up your virtual machine in another blade. If an entire rack fails, Azure can spin up a synchronous copy of your virtual hard drive in another rack. You're going to have 3 copies of your backup files locally in the data center that you're in, and you're going to have 3 copies in the failover data center. So for example, in Chicago, with backup files, you'll have 3 copies in the Chicago data center, and then its peering data center is San Antonio, Texas, and you'll have 3 copies of your backups there as well. All the data centers around the world have peering or failover data centers. And then we're going to set up a backup virtual network with asynchronous offline virtual machines in a failover data center. So what I mean by that is, in an Azure solution, by the nature of its solution, by the fact that you have your servers hosted in a data center, you already have what is traditionally considered disaster recovery. So if you have a fire, or flood, or natural disaster in your building is no longer available, well, your servers are in Azure to begin with, so you're in good shape there. That's traditional disaster recovery. But a client asked me one time, they said, well, what if a small meteor hits Microsoft's Chicago data center where you're putting my stuff? Well, then what? My site's fine, my office is okay, but I don't have my servers because the Azure data center is taken out. Well, it's an extreme case, but let's get it covered. I dug into that, and I found out for very, very, very inexpensively, we can build out a ready-to-go secondary virtual network, let's call it a cool virtual network, set aside, built out, all ready to go with asynchronous copies of your live servers, so that if the Chicago center did get taken out, we would go to San Antonio, spin up the real-time, near real-time copies of your virtual machines before they got taken out in Chicago, spin them up. We'd have a backup copy of your virtual firewall appliance. We would connect that up to your office, and within a short period of time, you'd be back in business. That is a disaster recovery system for a disaster recovery system. It's pretty amazing, but it's not expensive to set that up. That's what's really cool about that solution. Anyway, that's what we set up now in our Azure consulting practice for our customers. We will set you up with a WatchGuard Firebox Cloud virtual appliance. So typically we set up WatchGuard Fireboxes, hardware appliance at client site. Sometimes we do Cisco Meraki too. But WatchGuard is a really nice solution for a virtual firewall appliance. So we will set that up in the Azure Virtual Network. So in an ideal situation, you would have a WatchGuard Firebox hardware appliance on your local area network, and then we would set you up with a WatchGuard virtual firebox on your Azure virtual network, and we would connect the two together. It's a real high-performing, really secure, really nice, stable system. And then we would take advantage of Azure's advanced threat protection. So it's artificial intelligence-based threat protection. Bottom line is, if it sees anything suspicious running around on your servers that look unusual, it doesn't have a virus signature for it, it's still going to flag it. It's still going to put that up there. We're going to have a visibility, we're going to have a logged alert, and we can take action on that. Also, we will set you up with multi-factor authentication to access your servers. The same sort of thing we would set up if somebody needed access to their mailboxes or somebody needed access to their SharePoint document libraries. We will set up multi-factor authentication to your servers. So if you log into your servers and you're doing it with a device, a computer, an app that the system hasn't seen before, it's going to ring that person's cell phone to make sure it's really them, to keep the bad people away from threatening you with cyber extortion or cyber blackmail. So our proposal as we get closer to getting the money from Microsoft. So when we reviewed the system, we've built it out in the way we do it with our Azure practice. We put the proposal together. You will have the one-time professional project services, and then you will have the estimated Azure monthly subscription that goes along with that. And then we will also show you the optional monthly managed services to manage the servers if you want to do that with us. So then we'll show you the partner investment funding. So it works like this. Based on your estimated monthly Azure subscription spending and our standing as a Microsoft partner, Microsoft will provide funding to Xerillion towards your migration project costs. Xerillion credits 100% of the money that we get from Microsoft directly to your account, and we will show the anticipated credit at the time of the proposal review before a client signs. So going back to when we do the proposal, we're going to show you the one-time professional project service cost to migrate the system. We're going to show you the estimated Azure monthly subscription, and we're also going to show you what we anticipate being the funding that we will get from Microsoft. You will see all of that before you sign anything. And here it is. Here's the money from Microsoft. So if your Azure monthly subscription estimate is $1,000 a month, Microsoft will pay $1,500 towards your project. If it's $2,000 a month, Microsoft will pay $3,000 towards your project. $5,000 a month, they will pay $7,500 towards your project. If it's $10,000 a month, they will provide $15,000 towards your project. And this money can be used for migrations, proof of concepts, or deployments. This money, especially if you're doing it for a proof of concept, you are not locked in. If Microsoft provides the money, you are not required to spend money with them forever. They just want a shot at your business. They want to hook you up with a partner like us who they believe in, can look at the system and get you migrated and show you how great it is to be in Microsoft Azure. But you are not locked into this. And I will also say you will see whether you are approved or not before we actually go in with the project. It's another important point. So the funding process works like this. So after you've seen the proposal, the one-time, the monthly, what we expect to be your funding from Microsoft, you'll sign off on the project if all the numbers work for you and all that makes sense. So then Xerillion will submit the funding request to Microsoft, and then once Microsoft approves it, Microsoft gives us a couple dates, a do not start before date and a must be completed by date, which is normally 60 days. So once we get approved, and we've never had them not approve, we certainly submit things that we know should fit well into the funding request, but of course we can't guarantee that, is my point. So once we get that funding request approved, they tell us what date we can start working on it, and then what date we must complete it by. And so once we've done it, we submit to Microsoft that we've completed the project. Microsoft confirms with you that the project is complete. So then you will have to tell Microsoft, yes, we do agree that the project is done and Xerillion to do it. Microsoft then sends us the money, and then we credit the entire amount to your account, which then goes against your Azure project. So if you're interested to do this, the first step is to do a free Azure assessment. We will do all the work. It's about 4 hours of work on our end, and we'll get on the phone as many times as you want. We'll run you through everything, answer all your questions. Again, it doesn't cost you anything. We will do the assessment, we'll review the system, and we'll put together the proposal and the plan showing you the one-time, the monthly, and our anticipated credit that you would get from Microsoft. So what you would do is you would schedule an initial call. You can email support@Xerillion.com. You can call us 847-995-9800. You can go to our website, Xerillion.com/Microsoft-Azure, and read up a little bit more. I updated that webpage maybe about 3 months ago. In there, I go into some bullet points about how Microsoft, with each succeeding generation of their compute instances, and I don't care if we're talking about A series, B series, D series, it doesn't matter. Each generation is cheaper and faster than the one before it. So the cost to do business in Microsoft Azure keeps going down at a pace you could never achieve with an on-premises system. We have the cloud platform competency. We have many Azure builds and migrations under our belt, and we are a Microsoft multi-gold tier 1 cloud solutions provider. We love everything Microsoft, and we're a proud Microsoft partner. It's an amazing company to do business with, and they take great care of our customers. So the important thing to know, there is no risk to you. All right? We are experienced enough to know when Azure is not going to be an appropriate solution. And sometimes we will do some testing and we'll find out it doesn't. I can think of a case in point within the last year where we had a third-party software application. We looked at it, thought everything would be fine. We built the whole system out, but every time we would start and stop the servers, the licensing on the third-party application would have a problem. The licenses would get reset, and we had to re-add in the licensing code, so that just wasn't going to work. Beyond that, though, it's amazing. So once you get those servers moved and you're out of the hardware business and out of hosting that hardware, it's a much more stable, secure, calm, stress-free world that you will live in, whether you are the business executive or the owner of the company or the IT pro. And we're going to test prior to the cutover that the system works well, that it's nice and quick and snappy, that you can print. But if the Azure system does not perform as expected, the client will owe nothing. And we stand by that. We will just simply shut down the Azure Virtual Network. So we definitely go into it wanting to make sure that we won't be going into a project where we'll be doing a bunch of work and it won't work out. So we know what we're looking for, and we know what will work out to be a successful Azure project. But that being said, our commitment to you is if for some reason it doesn't perform as it should, we will just shut it down. You owe us nothing. My final thoughts. You cannot build an on-premises server system as robust and advanced as Microsoft. They just have the scale, they have the capability that very few organizations on the earth have. Azure servers are an incredible value. First, they're not expensive to begin with, and then when you see what you get on top of that, it's like you've built out with one Azure server, the equivalent on-premise system would be to have 3 separate high availability rack clusters at your office, something that would cost millions of dollars to set up. So you're just going to buy what you need right now, and it's going to be very inexpensive. Azure allows you to purchase the power you need right now when you need it, up or down. So while it's a fun conversation to talk about businesses booming, when there's a lot more people coming on the network, we need more power, we need more power. Sometimes there can be downturns in business, sometimes there can be downturns in the economy. And so the Azure, while it can scale up with you, and we're happy to do that, it's important to know that as a business, it can scale down with you. So at one point you might have needed capacity for 100 users, maybe you're down to 80. Well, we can save you money in situations like that as well. Azure servers only get cheaper and faster. You can go right to my website on the Azure page. You'll see it. I write it out. Very easy to read. Within 10 minutes, you'll know everything you need to know. In Azure, your offsite disaster recovery is built in. So disaster recovery typically meaning there's a fire and flood or some disaster in your building. Well, everything's offsite in Azure to begin with. What I talked about a few slides earlier was disaster recovery for disaster recovery, which is actually not expensive to add on, and it's incredible that we can do that in Microsoft Azure. And really, this is an important point. Life is better when you don't deal with hardware. It truly is. When you're not dealing with on-premises disaster recovery systems, hardware, failed drives, failed disk controllers, failed power supplies, when you're not dealing with hardware refreshes on site, you can just focus on what really matters in IT. And what I like to tell IT pros too is that if you can skill up and learn the Azure world, not only will your life improve because all these little hardware issues you won't deal with anymore, but you can really start driving real value for your company. Anyway, take advantage of this Microsoft funding. It's really amazing, and they've increased it from what they did last year. These $7,500 and $15,000 levels were not even available. And I know what you might be wondering, how much is it going to cost to migrate us? I cannot tell you until we've talked. I simply can't. I'd love to be able to just give, ABC option, call it a day. It just doesn't work that way. But really quickly, with our free assessment, we can determine what that cost is going to be, and we will walk you through it. Please take advantage of the Microsoft funding. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.